fast, fatal, hard impact. Past painful scars, in fact, I blast tasteful bars and past. I back up my actions, fact, don't ask, grab reactions, jacked, attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet now. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Q Show here, and now, before I do begin, I'm sorry for leaving you guys off on a cliffhanger with this series. So, let's just jump right into this with a review and then go back into the combats. Now, in the last part, Deku and Vadacha, these two were put into a death match with each other. And right now, these two are facing off. Now, Deku, he went through the ringer. Vadacha is very close to being an ancient yautja. This man has been alive for hundreds of years and has survived countless battles against all types of opponents. And Deku, he's just a human. However, he has been changed. He is closer to a yautja than before, especially after Vadacha ripped his arm off, and Deku, he was forced to use something that could potentially take away his humanity. Now, Deku, he injected himself with an accelerant that was given to him by Walter, and the result of it was Deku's wounds healing, even the missing limb. Now, thanks to the yautja DNA in his blood and this accelerant, he was able to regenerate his entire arm and even part of his shoulder. As whenever he did get back up, Vadacha, he was staying there very surprised. He already knew that Deku was becoming a bit more like them, and thanks to his strange exposure to the goo, he did have trace amounts of yautja DNA. However, right now this shows exactly how far that exposure has really gone. And Vadacha, he is staring down at Deku, as his wounds are still present. And the man, he actually is staring at Deku with some anger. As we do cut to the crowd, where Aki and many other people, they're staring on. The crowd, they were cheering and they were roaring out for their own champions. And there actually was whenever Deku got back up onto his feet. Whenever he did get Vadacha on the back foot and caught off guard, and people were watching him. And there was even things with the human colony. Many people knew that Deku, he was the strongest human. He is very powerful for who he is. However, they're not too sure what to say about what they're seeing. As we do cut to Aki. She's staying there and watching. And she actually is looking down at her own hand. She doesn't understand. She can almost feel that. As whenever Akisha is going to bring up her hand and go to close into a fist, you do actually have Deku, who he does go to look down at his strange new limb before going to actually turn towards Aki. And Aki, she actually is going to look up towards Deku as she's going to ask if he knows what that was. I do. But it's strange. Everything feels off. What do you mean? I don't know. Now, as Deku, he did go to look away from Vadacha, he was very angry. Deku is not supposed to take his eyes off of an opponent, especially during a match. And as Vadacha, he does go to rush forward towards Deku, you do actually have Deku, who, whenever Vadacha does move in the corner of his eye, he does go to turn and see him. As the man, he does look a little slower. It takes Deku a second to realize it, but he does notice it. Now, Vadacha, he does come rushing in with a punch, and Deku, he actually is able to slightly dodge out of the way of it, as one of Vadacha's knuckles do slightly bounce off of Deku's cheekbone, and they do actually still connect. As Deku, he actually is going to counter with his human hand. Deku being able to punch the man across the face, but we're going to bring up his yautja arm. Deku actually going to grab upwards towards Vadacha's throat, as Vadacha is going to bring up his arm, and Deku is going to grab onto it. As Deku, the moment he does actually go to grab onto it, he does go to try and force his body around Vedacha. Deku actually going to bring himself around Vedacha and pull his arm backwards. Vedacha actually trying to turn his body with Deku. That way Deku can't get his arm into a lock behind his back. And as Vedacha does try to do this, you do actually have where Deku, he does actually quickly go to jump and then go onto Vedacha's back. Before he does go to hold it upwards, and Vedacha, he is actually trying to get free. Him actually trying to swing back his other arm and hit into Deku. And Deku, he actually at least does go to bring himself slightly downwards and kick into the back of Vedacha's knee. And Vedacha, he actually is going to slightly fall forwards onto that knee. As Deku, he actually is going to bring himself down and go to grab upwards towards Vedacha's other arm. Vedacha is still trying to fight back. As Vedacha, he actually is going to stand upwards as Deku does have him held there and slightly unable to move. And Deku, he does try to inform Vedacha that while he may have the experience, he has the youth. And he at least does have a lot more in it than he does. You do not understand this, human. Whatever the hell you are, you will not be around my daughter. Your daughter can make that choice, Vedacha. No, she cannot. There is much more planned for her. And you are not in the cards, as the term is. Correct. That's the right term, yeah. Vedacha fighting back against Deku. And Deku can feel it. While his strength did increase from that serum, it's still not enough to be on par with him. Deku, he isn't strong enough in his human arm, but his yautja one, it's strong enough. Now, Deku, he knows that eventually he's going to lose his grip. So he does try to take an opportunity. As Deku, he actually has to somewhat open his mouth and go to just bring his face directly into Vedacha's neck. Deku actually using his now sharpened teeth directly pull out a chunk of flesh from the back of Vedacha's neck. And Vedacha, whenever Deku did go to sink his teeth in, he actually go to somewhat scream out in pain as Deku ripped out a chunk of the back muscle in the part of his right shoulder. And Vedacha, he actually was able to somewhat just fling himself backwards and onto the ground. Him just smashing Deku down as Deku, he did go to let go with his human arm. And Vedacha, he actually was able to turn his body around and directly get on top of Deku. As whenever he did so, he actually go to bring back his fist and go to start wailing into Deku's face. As Deku, he was holding a chunk of flesh and skin in his teeth. And as Vedacha does start to just beat down on Deku, you do actually where Deku does start to bring up his arms. Him trying to defend his face as Vedacha does one simple thing. He goes for the unprotected points on Deku's chest, trying to force him to open himself back up and be defenseless. Now, Deku, he does at least try to bring his legs upwards to try and defend. However, with this man on top of him, he is very unlikely to get that done. And with Vedacha's weight currently all being placed onto Deku's torso, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. Now, we actually do have in the audience where Aki, she is watching and she is worried. She is conflicted on who she should cheer for. Well, she does want to cheer for Scar, her beloved, the one she is very close to. She is trying to think about more than just her emotions. She has been trained militaristically, and she is trying to think about the betterment of their clan. If her father dies, they will be left without no more elders. He was the last remaining, and the elite predators that are going to ascend, she doesn't believe that their law or jurisdiction, it will be upheld to the same extent as her father's was. They may not be ready. Those yautja, they still lack hundreds of years of experience. But then there's Scar. The man isn't even 100. He's not even half that age, and yet he's still a leader. Now, as Akishi is thinking about this, Deku can feel her emotion. As you do actually have where Vedacha does to connect a fist into Deku's face. As Deku's jaw does slightly get unhinged, as a tooth does get knocked out. Avadachi he actually has to bring his hands downwards on Deku's throat, him trying to choke the life out of Deku. As Deku he actually does somewhat go to start feeling it, as his eyes do widen, and Vadacha he does start to somewhat grin or show an expression that Deku he can best describe as anger and a mix of sadness, as this man he can feel his anger. In fact, he can feel his emotions. And right now there's one he's feeling. It's grief. And Deku, he doesn't understand why. He has this connection with a key, not Vadacha. And Deku, he actually does do something that Vadacha, it does catch him off guard with. As Deku, he does go to show a toothy, sharp smile. As he actually does bring up his hand and go to directly slash towards Vadacha's face. As over Vadacha, he does go to try and get back a bit. Deku actually is able to grab towards the man's mandible and rip off his lower one on the left side of his face. And Vadacha, he actually does want to go to let go of Deku as he's going to jump backwards. And Deku, as he does at least go to slightly pull himself onto the side, he does go to try and jump off the ground. As he does go to get back up and go to take this sharpened piece of bone and go to spin it in his hand and hold on to it. As whenever Deku does go to draw in a breath, you do actually have a key. Who? She is startled by her mother. As the woman she does go to walk up directly next to her and bring a hand up to her shoulder. Mother? Hello, daughter. I've been looking for you. You are a hard yautja to find. Mother, what are you doing here? I heard everything. I heard the stories. At first, I believed them to be a lie. I believed them to be a rumor. However, I was shown the evidence. And I was very angry. What is wrong with you? Mother, I've been... Your eyes, they've changed. I assumed you grew more because of a growth spurt, but... Are you alright, daughter? Are you sick? Mother, I've been sick for a while now, and... Really? Yes, Mother. These strange mutations, they've been taking a toll on my body. I don't exactly know. I mean, daughter, may I ask you some questions? And I believe you should answer them to the best of your abilities. Because this actually might be an interesting development. You're not going to try and convince me, talk me back to the clan, not have me fight another champion? Daughter, just answer my questions, because I believe that there is something wrong here. Alright, Mother. Now, we do a cut back into the ring. Vadacha, he's standing there with his hands up, and at least blood pouring down his face and onto his torso. As the man, he's staring at Deku, and Deku is holding onto this piece of sharpened bone. As he does stare at Vadacha and the man, he does at least go to turn and look towards the people in charge, the people who are monitoring this event. As Vadacha, he does want to at least talk about how that could be a weapon, or it is. And, well, these people, they at least do go to give a thumbs up to it, or at least go to make a gesture that does at least mean that, since it's not really a weapon, it's a body part, one that was taken from the opponent. And Vadacha, he actually does go to stare down at Deku, as he actually does see something in the corner of his eye. As he does turn and see there's something on the ground before. Him actually at least going to keep his eyes on Deku is just going to shuffle his way to the right. As whenever he does go to bend down and pick it up, he does stare at it for a minute. This is a weapon. It's a club, and it's strange. Now, Vadacha, he does go to look upwards towards the other end of the club, as it's shaped like a hand. And Deku does stare at Vadacha for a second, as it takes him a moment to realize that that's his arm. That's his human arm. What the hell? Interesting, human. So were you aware that this happened to your body? I don't know what that is, but it can only be. What? It appears to have solidified. Decomposition took it. Or not. It appears to be like a piece of material. A piece of simple material. Now, Vadacha, he actually is going to grab onto the other end. Him actually going to swing it around, talking about how it does appear that it actually does have a good weight to it. It will be his perfect trophy. Alright. Well then. I suppose you wouldn't mind me making a pair of daggers, or at least a couple of knives out of your tusks then. Human. Thing. Abomination. This is more than that. You believe that you can win. I believe I'm going to beat you to death with your own severed limb. Right now, neither of us are really able to tell. However, after I murder you, after I rip your spine from your body, let's see what happens. You were able to bring back the arm. I'm wondering if you can bring back the head. Maybe I can even you out, as the humans do say, correct? Take the other arm? Hell, I can give you another tusk. We can make it a bit more interesting, don't you appear? Don't you think? Now, Deku does find this to be kind of strange. Wadacha's never been the man to taunt people, and that's kind of odd. Now, you actually do at least have in the stands, where Aki, after talking with her mother, a few things are brought up to her, and it does sort of alarm her. Since, while she is aware that her body hasn't been acting normally, there is at least a problem that's going to need to be addressed by the end of this. Now, we do actually come back into the ring, where Deku, he actually has charged towards Vadacha, and his speed actually has catch a lot of people off guard. As whenever he did go to run forwards, he cleared about 3 steps before Vadacha, he did go to react to Deku. Him going to swing out Deku's arm as he does go for a low blow, assuming that Deku he's going to be close to the ground to avoid a fully frontal attack to the face. As whenever Deku he actually does go low, he does look at Vadacha's feet. As whenever Vadacha he does go to someone to get into a similar stance to a baseball batter, Deku he actually does go to do one simple thing. He does go to leap upwards directly towards Vadacha's face. And as that actually has happened, Vadacha he does get ready. As Deku actually is going to throw the tusk towards Vadacha. As, whenever this does happen, he actually is going to have to try and dodge it, as it's going to directly jab into his cheek instead of his eye. And the moment this actually has happened, he is going to bring up his hand, as he's going to try and swing wildly with the club. And Deku, after he does go to somewhat bring his feet back down and go to shift his body weight, he does throw himself backwards and avoid the attack, as he does go to bring out his claws and directly slash upwards into Vadacha's torso. And a lot of people did watch that. As Vadacha, whenever he does go to bring the club back around, Deku he does go to bring up his arm, as his yautja arm does collide with the solid material. The arm feels as solid as concrete, and Deku he does feel the damage hit him. As this does happen, Deku actually does go to bring up his fist and directly jab himself directly into Vadacha's side, him smashing under the ribs into a kidney. As this does happen, Vadacha, he does go to bring up his other hand, him going to attack Deku by trying to stab his claws directly into Deku's ribs. As for Deku, he actually does go to bring himself to the side. Vadacha, he does directly slash himself or slash into Deku's ribs, him colliding and sliding his fingers across the side of Deku's torso, as Deku he actually is able to bring up his, hand and directly jab it upwards into Vadacha's side. As over Deku he does do so, he is able to turn his hand around directly claw something inside. And Vadacha he does scream out more. And Deku he actually is a bit more proud. As over Deku he does go pull his hand backwards, there is a snapping sound Vadachi does hear, and a pain he does feel. As Deku, when he does get to pull back at least two of Vadacha's ribs. As Vadacha, he actually is still standing, and he actually does this go to bring the club back around and smash into Deku. And this time, Deku, he does feel the thing directly smash into him hard and break. Now, this does hurt him. And Vadacha, whenever he does go to bring up his other hand, you do actually have where he does go to directly punch himself into Deku. Him punching Deku right in the gut, as Deku, he does get sent flying backwards and smashing into the ground. As whenever Deku, he does go to cough up blood, he does go to try and go back onto his feet. As Vadacha, he actually does somewhat slightly go to slump forwards. Him falling onto one of his knee, as he does go to bring up his hand and pull the tusk out of his face. And he does go to switch it in his fingers to turn it around. He can still use it as a weapon. He is aware of this. However, right now, he needs to catch his breath. Deku, he may have hit a lung. And right now, breathing might become a problem. He's going to have to end this fast. This human is too unexpected. Now, you do actually have Deku. He himself isn't doing too well. Right now, his body, it's trying to stay up to date, if you don't want to put it that way. This new limb is changing a bit more. While it is technically part of Deku's body, it's still having a bit of a problem with his immune system. His immune system is completely renovating, if you want to put it that way. And right now, Deku, whenever he does go to someone sit back up and look at Vadacha, you do actually have his vision. It slightly does blur as Deku, he knows he has internal bleeding. And he's pretty sure that he can feel at least something in the wrong place. Now, Deku, whenever he does try to stand up, he does actually find that he can't feel one of his legs. Him looking down before going to bring up his hands. Him at least going to feel along his back as he does go to pop something back into place and he actually is able to wiggle his toes. Him doing so with a loud grunt as Vadacha does watch Deku go to turn up and try to stand. Now, Vadacha does directly go to charge at Deku. And as it does happen, you do actually have where Deku, he does go to get onto his feet, just as Vadacha, he is able to grab onto Deku by his shoulders. Him charging forwards and directly into the wall. The two of them colliding with it, as Deku, he actually is able to bring up his hand. Him trying to grab for another one of Vadacha's tusk. As Vadacha, he actually is able to drive the tusk directly into Deku's shoulder and downwards into part of his body, as he's directly in the collarbone area. And right now he's just under the area, under or at least around the top part of Deku's shoulder. Now, this is something that Deku he does feel. Vadacha is stabbing into him with his pectoral muscle, or into his pectoral muscle with his own fang. And right now Deku, he's not too sure what to do. The Manny's holding him there. And right now he can feel Vadacha's claws digging into his shoulder. As Deku he does try to use his human arm to buckle Vadacha's arm. As Vadacha is trying to push this fang deeper and deeper. He knows that he can be very close to hitting Deku's heart. He may have to force a finger inside, or at least go to try and jam his fingers inside Deku's wound to get the actual fang to hit the heart. Humans are very tricky. Take out that one organ, and they die. Or you can go directly for the brain. That being what Vadacha is thinking. As he does go to bring up his other hand and directly go to grab onto Deku's head. And Deku, he can't actually feel it. He feels at least the panic start to set in. Vadacha is about to kill him. And right now, there's nothing he can do. He gave it his best in this fight. And right now, he's been made well aware as to the fact he might lose. As you do actually have a key who does go to speak into Deku's mind. She tells Deku one simple thing. And Deku, the moment his eyes do go to widen, you do actually have Vadacha. Vadacha does actually feel as there is a sharp biting pain into his face. And Deku, he actually goes to pull away with his teeth. As Vadacha, he does a step backwards, and Deku, he actually is able to be dropped a bit more towards the ground. And Deku, he does go to charge towards Vadacha. Deku, he's able to directly tackle into Vadacha and get him onto the ground. The moment Deku tackled into him, he did use his claws to try and sever the parts of his legs that allow him to stand. And the Vadacha, the moment he did actually feel Deku's claws run up the part of his joints, he tried to move one of his legs. Deku was able to slice part of it. He was able to get one of those veins in there, or at least one of those muscles and the part of the ligament. And Vadacha, he did actually try to fight against Deku more. As Deku, he actually is on top of Vadacha, him using his yautja hand to punch directly into his face. And Vadacha, he is actually at least trying to decently hold his ground. As we do actually have where Deku, he does go to bring his human hand up. And Vadacha, he does go to try and take this chance to attack. He goes directly for Deku's throat. And Deku, using his human hand, he actually does one thing. He makes an attempt for Vadacha's. And Vadacha, he does at least go to meet Deku's hand as Deku. He actually does, instead of going for this throat as a last call, Deku, he does directly swing his left hand arm outwards and directly into Vadacha's arm. Deku going to grab away towards the bend in his elbow, as Deku does go to grab right onto that artery. Now, Vadacha does actually feel Deku's arm dig into it. And while Deku, he's able to push Vadacha's arm a bit away, he does go to move inwards with his teeth. And everybody, they do watch the current scene unfold. As Deku, he digs his sharpened teeth directly into Vadacha's throat. As whenever everyone they do watch Deku pull backwards, they do watch the bloody green mess spew from the wound. As Deku, he just ripped out the entire section Vadacha's throat was in. And you do actually have where Deku, he does go hold onto Vadacha. And Vadacha, it takes him a minute to realize it. He just lost. And Deku, he actually has to spit this large chunk of flesh out of his mouth, as well as at least go to spit out the piece he was actually able to bite off, instead of everything else that just came with it. And Vadacha, he does go to bring his hands up. He does go to at least bring his hand up to where his throat was and find the wounds. He already knew that his lungs were filling with blood. However, it's different. Instead of having a trouble breathing, he can't breathe at all. He doesn't know what to even do. He doesn't know how to really even feel. And we do actually have Deku. After Deku did go to spit that wound, or at least go to spit the large piece of meat out, he did go to bring his mouth over to Vadacha's ear. And Vadacha, he decided to take this defeat with honor. He wasn't going to attack the opponent who already won. He was going to let himself die. And Deku, he did go to whisper something to Vadacha that did at least make the yautja a bit more happy. The yautja, the man, he never really had many connections. He never really had purpose. However, Deku does inform the yautja as he's starting to fade that he will help Aki accomplish his dream. They will do it. And he will at least use the wish, you can say, that he was given, or the request he was given from his clan to make it possible. Now, Vadacha, he does go to make a gurgling sound. And Deku, he doesn't know what he's trying to say. However, from the facial expressions he does see, he does know that it was something approving. And right now, Deku, he does go to somewhat just throw himself directly to the left, as he does go bring his body down to rest. Him bring up his yautja arm before going to pull out the tusk that was Vadacha's. As Deku, he does pull the large piece of bone directly out of his upper pectoral muscle, you do have where he does slightly have the area relax more. As he does, he starts to feel his body repair part of the damage. While it may not be instant, it feels kinda strange. And Deku, he knows now that his body isn't directly trying to repair his insides, it's trying to make an attempt on the actual wounds that could be somewhat fatal. And Deku, after he does get to pull out his tusk, he does get to look down at it. At least 2/3 of this thing is covered in blood. And if he had to describe it, it is very similar to a saber-toothed tiger tusk. This thing is huge. And he doesn't understand. Vadacha, he could have gone right for the heart. That be what Deku does think. Him looking at the man. Deku's heart is directly under the center of his chest and in his ribcage. Hell, the guy could have charged him directly and killed him like that. That's something he could have done. Was it a moment of panic? Did he actually put up that much of a fight? That being what Deku's thinking. As Deku, he wants to compare the area that this wound could have been at if Vadacha went under his ribs and directly for his heart. He doesn't understand. Vadacha's direct. This man, he doesn't play around with his battles. He's seen documents of this guy hunting. He's seen information and studied this man's hunting techniques before. He is a very powerful hunter. But this, was he messing with him? Was he toying with him? It would explain some things. Now, you do actually have where the moderators, as it's called them, they do at least go to declare that the human known as Scar is the winner, and that he is now allowed to make the request he does so desire, as long as it is nothing that would harm the other clan in any way or form, such as requesting dishonor. Now, this is something that Deku he does here, and Deku he does breathe a sigh of relief. He was very worried about that. There are people who, from what he understands from documentation, have requested clans go into exile, and he doesn't understand why. Some yautja, they're just assholes. And there are even some yautja who try to make more ambitious requests. And while there have been some that have been accepted, like becoming an elder of that clan, you do have other problems that do arise from it, such as challenges from inside that clan that do result in the creation of bad bloods. Now, Deku, he understands that what he wants to request, it might be hard to think about. As Deku does going to speak up and say that he is going to have to think. He had no request. Vadacha was the one who issued his challenge. And right now, he would like to at least think on this, because of how delicate the situation can turn to if he requests the wrong thing. And the yautja, they always do go to look at each other, as after they do go to discuss on a private line inside their mask what to do, you do at least have where time is given to Deku. As Aki, she does jump over the ring and run towards Deku to help him. She does go to directly check on Deku. And Deku, whenever Aki does go to run into his arms and hug him, he actually has winced in pain because of some of his wounds. And Aki, she actually has to pull back and ask if he's alright. Yeah, I'm fine. But you're not. Oh. Yeah, sorry. Wait, why are you happy? Nothing. Listen, it's just. Wait, you're sad too? You're scared. Deku gonna bring up his hand. Him running his left hand across Deku running his left hand across Aki's face, asking exactly what's wrong. And Deku, he knows that she might be scared. Why? Is she scared of a request he can make? Is she scared of this strange new limb? Hell, he's scared of it too. And Deku is going to look down at some of his wounds. The one on his left arm that's healed, it is actually covered in yautja's skin. And that's something that he has taken notice of. And you do actually have a key. Hushi has talked about how they need to go to Walter for test. And Deku does go to agree. As we do cut to a lab where Walter and David, they are arguing. And right now, both of them, they are conflicted. They are very angry at each other. Walter, he did something that David, he did not believe was at least a good judgment call. Meanwhile, Walter, he doesn't believe what David was doing was right. Yes, these two are hybridizing, and the changes could be strange, fatal maybe, catastrophic, or, well, straight up just insanifying. It could rot their minds with how slowly they were changing. And that's something that he does at least going to point out. Him at least going to bring up alternative theories as to what is happening to these two, and expressing at least the mental drawback, or at least the mental strain these two have been on thanks to David, slowing them down. And whenever Deku does go to walk into the room, you do actually have where David is going to directly turn towards Deku before going to at least go to look back towards Walter. Before he does at least go to stop and think for a minute, before going to turn back towards Deku. And going to bring up his hand, and his jaw is going to drop. And Deku, he does stare directly at David. As Walter, he does go to look towards Deku, and just stare directly at the hand. He doesn't know what to even say to that. And Deku, he does at least go to inform David that he needs to run some tests on both of them. And David, he does go to agree. Him setting both of these two down, as he does ask exactly what they want him to look at. And you do actually have where Akisha's ask Walter to at least run a few tests on her privately. And Walter, he does go to agree. If David focuses on Deku, these two can stop arguing. These two can finally at least just stop what they've been doing for the last hour. Since that's at least how long Deku, he had that yautja arm for in the fight. These two were just drawing it out with punch after punch. And the battle, while it did have at least a few notable highlights, there was a little bit of boring things. Now, that's something that David, he does at least go to think back on. He saw the way that Deku's body was reacting, the way he was different in his fights. And you do at least have where Deku is at least bringing things up to David. And David, he's trying to at least talk to Deku as he's running some things through a computer. And we do actually have where he does get a notification. Him at least going to look at it to see that it's a message from Walter. Before at least the computer does ding a few more times, and David is going to press a button and go to look at the page. As whenever he does go to start reading a few lines, you actually have Deku. Deku, he could see the hologram. And whenever he did start to try and point out what the thing said backwards, he did actually have where David, he did go to press a button that did at least go to turn the back of it from a hologram to a solid black surface. And Deku, he was confused. He enabled privacy mode? Huh. But that would mean... But in order to do that, you would... The structures, they wouldn't exactly... But that would explain that. David? What are you looking at? You mind sharing it with me? Well, I do not believe that this is mine to share. But, well, more tests need to be run here. Oh, god damn. More tests, David, really? Yes, trust me. This is something that you really want to know about. Now, Deku, he does hear about that. As he has to just want to lean back and think. David, he really wants to run more tests. More tests is all they've ever been fucking doing. They have been put through this shit for almost a month. And they have been going back and forth between David and their place for almost 2. What can be so important that this test needs to be run? And David, he sees that he is seemingly having his jaw hit the ground as if he just discovered something directly, well, impossible. Now, we do actually have where David, he does get to somewhat stand up and walk out of the room. As Nori does get to the door, a key does go to walk in, and the door does go to lock behind her. And Deku does go to look up towards her as Aki does walk over and go to sit down. As she does directly stare at Deku before going to bring up a tablet. And Deku, he does go to stare down at it. As he does look up towards the key. And for a minute, he doesn't feel like he needs to look at it. Because the feeling she has, it's, well, it's just fear. She's scared shitless. He's seen her face down monsters. And, well, right now she's so conflicted. Her thoughts are bombarding him and he doesn't know what to even say. However, Deku does go to grab the tablet and go to open it carefully, as his eyes do widen at the black and white picture he's seeing. As Deku, he takes a minute to think, as he does realize something. He says the words out loud, and Akishi does just stare at him. As Deku, he says that life finds a way. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed, and have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys in the next part.